You know, this potential rail strike and averting a government shutdown on lawmakers' minds as Congress returns to session. Former acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney joins me now. Mick, good to see you.
Hey, Cheryl, thanks for having me.
A lot to go through with you. So we've got Democrats coming back. They're ready to address gun laws, which might be a long shot. Republicans making plans for investigations, impeachments. This is at a time when the economy is facing huge headwinds. Let's just start with a looming rail strike. Your thoughts?
Sure, and I think it's probably the most important issue that Congress will have to deal with when it comes back. Keep in mind, rail is a really interesting part of the economy because of its history, because of the legislation on the books. Congress can actually get involved and pass a resolution, it would have to be signed by the president, that either delay a strike or prevent a strike. That's why you hear so much congressional sort of input on this. It's not like if there was a strike at the airlines or at any other part of the economy. So Congress can actually get involved here, as they have in the past. But it's not easy to do. You have to have something pass the House and the Senate and get signed by the president. It is clearly the biggest issue they have to deal with the possible exception of funding the government. Keep in mind, the government runs out of money, I think, December 15th, and they'll have to pass a fund. Is it 16th to pass a resolution to keep the government open? Those are the two biggest issues they get back to. Lame ducks is not when they like to deal with big issues, but they don't have any choice this year.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to be really good news for the unions if Congress gets involved. So maybe we'll get a deal and we don't have to game this out anymore because it's kind of unfortunate to talk about. I want to move into 2023 with you, in particular House priorities. Obviously, with Kevin McCarthy, the Republicans coming in, they're talking about an investigation. Hunter Biden, they want to investigate Joe Biden. They want to go after Mayorkas. Is this the right time to push these investigations and these other things, these political, I guess, footballs, if you will, when you've got the economy so fragile? I mean, where should we be putting our energy? If Kevin McCarthy is coming in and they've got a chance to make a real difference and to tell voters, look, you put us in charge, we're going to make your life better, what should he be focusing on and what should they be focusing on?
Yeah, it's really not a binary choice. And I've been critical of some of the oversight that both parties have done in the past, but there's no reason to say you can't do an investigation in one committee and be looking at legislation in another. I've talked to a couple of the potential Republican leaders, the various committees, and they're looking, for example, at doing legislation on China, legislation on big tech, legislation on crypto and so forth. Those things can go forward while investigations are going on at the same time. Keep in mind, you have a financial services committee that is separate and apart from the oversight to the Judiciary Committee. So it's not a binary choice between the two things. I think those investigations are probably inevitable given the political climate that we're in, but it doesn't mean that other work won't be going on at the same time. And it's important that that other work does go on at the same time.
Yeah, you had Dr. Fauci on television yesterday saying he knows he's going to get called. He's ready to face Congress. You know, here we go. I want to get your take on these hawkish comments that we've gotten just in the last few moments. This is St. Louis Fed President James Bullard. He says rates need to go higher to bring down inflation, and this is an interview that he's been giving, and it's ongoing. But basically, he's being very, very hawkish, and basically makes it sound like we need to raise rates quick, fast, and just make it very painful. What does that mean for the meeting that's coming up this month?
That's a big meeting, but the question for Bullard should be this, which is, how does that solve the supply issues? If you're looking at inflation caused in part, if not in large part, by supply issues, we simply don't have enough goods and services to sell. How does raising rates help that? Yes, it can crush demand. It's called, in fact, demand destruction by economists. It can force the country into recession, and that could lower prices. But is that the smartest way to do it? Why not instead be looking at ways to increase the supply of goods and services and help let that bring down prices? That's why I think this rail strike is so important, not just because of its general impacts on the economy, but the impacts on the supply chain could make inflation worse, despite what the Fed does. Look, when you're the Federal Reserve, you have one tool. That tool is a hammer. Everything looks like a nail, and nothing that they are going to do by raising rates is going to change the supply in the economy. And I think that's the question that Bullard has to answer, and that the Fed at their next meeting has to answer. How are they looking at this holistically, as opposed to just looking at it from the demand side?
Yeah, well, his voice has certainly moved markets today. We definitely tick lower on those comments from him. Mick, it's always good to see you.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Yeah, thanks for being here.